Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about a bone stock VFC gearbox. I'm going to open it up and basically show you guys what I like, what I don't like, what they did right and what they did wrong. Stay tuned. Okay, so this is the outside. I'm just going to talk about quickly what I can see just from the outside. I've taken the screws out already, so I'm ready to open it up, but I wanted to talk about it. First things first, it's reinforced at the front, which I really like. It's not a ridiculous amount of reinforcement, just a little bit. Basically, what you're going to want to do still is just radius the windows just to enhance the durability a little bit, but it's a bit of reinforcement bar. I like this design a lot because it doesn't force you to use a proprietary tappet plate, and it's still ridiculously strong as well. Solid metal bushings, usually a good sign. No plastic bushings, no bearings, nothing crazy like that. It's going to be reliable, so you don't have to worry too much about won't be a point of failure. Metal selector plate, which means it's not going to break on you. Also interfaces really well with their selector levers on their AR-15 lowers, which by the way is probably one of the best ones I've felt in the industry so far, aside from a PTW. Next thing, they've used a sort of 18 gauge wiring, which I'm not a huge fan of, but at least the insulation is nice and durable. So it's good enough to go unless you go for like a high power or high rate of fire build. You're not going to be putting a lot of amps down. Next thing is they have, some of them do come with a fuse, some don't. I've seen some of them, they have a fuse. You can get rid of it right away, or you can wait till it blows and then just connect the two ends together and just join it that way. They've gone the extra mile and they sort of heat shrank this whole length of wiring, which is really nice. So you don't get the wire kind of, the red and black kind of flailing around or anything like that. It keeps it nice and tight, so when you route it through your buffer tube, it's a lot easier to work with. They've also put these bullet connectors here, so what you can do is you can essentially take out the tail end of the harness and have this business end here, so you don't have a great length of wiring flopping around when you work on your Mechbox. Really nice touch for VFC to include that. You can go ahead and set that aside. Last thing is I want to talk about is this little cutout here. Huge fan of this cutout because it allows you to get a really thin tool in there and just kind of pick at it, but I guess put a tool in there and just open up the anti-reversal latch, relieves tension on the piston so that you can open up the gearbox safely without the gears kind of misaligning or your spring guide flying around or anything like that. So really nice, really nice so far, and it's got that really durable, not painted matte finish on the outside, so you're not going to get paint flaking off or anything like that. So also one last note is VFC, they put the bolt catch mechanism on the outside, so if you go and switch Mechboxes into VFC, most Mechboxes don't have these little nubs and the little screw here, so you may lose that feature, so watch out for that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open this up. Okay, so I have the Mechbox open now, so I'm just going to start with no particular order. Bearing spring guide, really nice. Basically, well, a lot of stock companies are starting to come up with this now, but really nice for VFC to include that, so you don't have to go run out and buy one. Standard spring, nothing too fancy about that. I've released the tappet plate spring, so I'm going to go ahead and lift it out. Before I talk about the cylinder group, just want to make a note about the grease. It's not bad grease. It's not super thick, but it's got that really weird cream texture to it. I guess it seems to work okay. Moving on, I'm gonna pull this out. Ooh, all right. So this used to be silver, but I guess they're coming out with the red ones now. But I mean, obviously it's the same. It's an aluminum piston head with bearings on a polycarb body. This polycarb body is probably not going to last you too long. Polycarb, as you know, is not the best material to use for pistons, but it seems to work. It's very lightweight. It's only one metal too, so you can't really short stroke it or anything like that. I would probably replace. This is probably one of the first things I would replace on this Mechbox, the piston, and also get rid of the bearings and maybe get rid of the aluminum piston head because there's really no need for so much weight. I'm just going to hold it like this, and you can see it just so heavy, just swings down. All right, moving on. Whoops. The nozzle is a standard. There's an O-ring inside. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it does have an O-ring inside. Pretty decent from the looks of it. It's not a standard circle, but it is sort of like a weird round triangle shape, but symmetrical. Tapper plate, nothing too special. Again, this uses a standard tapper plate, which is really, really nice, but it's still reinforced. So kudos to VFC for that. Moving on, show you guys the, whoops, okay, yeah, so there you go. It just pops right out. So the seal's probably not fantastic on this thing. Yeah, it's a bit loose, but compression-wise, it's actually pretty decent, all things considered. The rubber pad's a bit thin. I've actually tried taking these out, the pad out, but it's not. It doesn't come out very easily. So I would, if you're gonna put a servo pad on it to correct angle of engagement, replace the whole cylinder head. Don't be cheap. Just grab a Lonix head and it'll fit in there. One thing to note about it is Lonix shells are based on VFC shells. So anything that fits VFC fits Lonix and the other way around. So get a Lonix cylinder head, throw a servo on it, and give yourself a high five. And you can correct AOE and get yourself a nice aluminum cylinder head right off the bat. This one's actually made out of plastic, black plastic. Cylinder, I think this is either steel or brass, but it's got that cool gunmetal color. M4 ported. Strangely enough, this came from a gun with a barrel length of like 500mm, but they gave me a cylinder with an M4 hole. Still shoots 430 FPS out of the box though, so I guess it's not too bad. But check your cylinder volume. Depending on what ammo you run, you might want to switch it out to a full cylinder or tip hole or whatever you want to call it. Decent cylinder. Moving on, the infamous VFC self-shimming gear. Honestly, they're not that bad. I don't mind them at all. They're pretty okay. Let me see here. So basically, the sector gear and the spur gear are spring-loaded. So you can see here. There are the little springs in them, and also here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but these two are spring-loaded. The bevel gear is not spring-loaded, so you're gonna have to shim that. But as you can see, like when you open up the Mechbox, nothing really springs out at you. Everything kind of fits as it should. Very, very similar to you know, an aftermarket Mechbox. So really nice to see. I think shimming from the factory is usually quite good. Again, what you want to do is, if you're going to open it up and shim it, just shim it pinion to bevel, correct that, and then basically try to rise this entire the spur gear, and then adjust the sector gear as necessary. But they are self-shimming, so cuts the work down a little bit for you. They're pretty good. I mean, like I've had this up in a gun for it takes about like 450 FPS or something like that, and they've held up pretty good. I wouldn't really use it for. I wouldn't really go in and short stroke it or do any kind of thing, anything extreme with it. I mean, the metal doesn't seem to be that hard, but it seems to be all right. One last thing I want to point out is, you see here they've applied this black heat shrink along here, and this is really nice touch that I don't see a lot of aftermarket Mechbox companies do. And the reason why I like this is because you notice how you're not losing the black wire. The black wire isn't falling off, so when you have to like put it back all the time. So this piece of heat shrink keeps all the wiring together. Really nice touch for VFC to do that. Already gone through the low, I guess like the 18 gauge wiring, which I'm not a huge fan of, but the insulation is pretty durable. Nothing else really. That's about it. All right. Thanks for watching.